Hi, I'm Joyce Fishman, creator of Carousel, and today I'm your host, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to people I admire. We're lucky to have with us Elsie Wheeler, who has taken her camera to many remarkable places and has brought back exciting images she's willing to share. Elsie, could you tell us what started you in photography?
Well, my father was a very excellent amateur photographer and had his own darkroom, and so my uncle had the same. And so I got intrigued by working in their darkrooms and looking at it. And my father said, well, I'll give you a camera, but it doesn't have any bells and whistles on it. It's just, you've got to know how to take a decent picture. And so then I'll give you a real camera.
Mm-hmm. I guess you learned how.
then I learned how. That was in probably 1950.
Can you tell us more about your family?
More about my family. Yes, I come from a rather artistic family. Mm-hmm. In all, they've published 3 books, and they do needle pointing, and they just are very artistic in their own ways. And my cousin is a fabulous photographer, who was the first woman photographer who was ever accepted at the Cowboy Hall of Fame.
Really?
She took photographs in the ring, which you have to be licensed to do that. And then the bull gets to take a whack at you if he feels like
wow.
it. So
she had nerve as well as skill.
Yes, and she loved things that were in action, and I have ended up doing anything that moves, shooting anything that moves, mostly birds.
And how do you catch them?
How do I catch them? Well, you have to lead them. You have to point the camera in front of them, and then they fly into the camera. They fly into the picture.
But they look as if they're moving, and they always look great. We'll see your pictures another time, but
okay.
That's great. And you went to Smith College. Did you learn any skills there?
Yes, my senior year I took a course in the art of photography given by Professor Kennedy, and that was very revealing and absolutely a wonderful course. We were given Kodak, we were lent the land camera, the Polaroid camera, and we were trying out their new films to see which ones were usable and which ones were not. So that was a very exciting project.
And when you graduated from Smith, you launched a freelance career. Where were you? Where did you go?
I was in New York City. I lived in New York City. And part of my freelance work was shooting families. I had also studied with a German photographer in portraiture of families, of children. And so I would go wherever the family was and spend the weekend and shoot them and their children.
Can you tell me some parts of your career that were the most satisfying?
The most satisfying? Well, I don't know what satisfying means. To me, excitement is very satisfying. I just have to know what's around the next corner. And so that for me was in 1966 when I was in Vietnam. I was in Saigon. And they offered me a chance to go up in a helicopter and shoot the Cameroon Bay. But at that moment, I was traveling with somebody, and they wouldn't hear of that because they couldn't figure out how to tell my family that I'd been shot over the bay. So very reluctantly and furiously, I had to not do that, not take that offer.
And you worked at Time for a while. What did you do there?
At Time, I worked for Time Inc., which is a collection of magazines. And my first job was to answer the letters that came into Sports Illustrated about various questions that the people had. And so I had to research that to get the answers, and then I would write the letters. And they would be signed by the editor or whatever poor fool had to read them.
And how did you come to Fairfield County?
Fairfield County, well, that's a good question, as I was brought up in Long Island. And then after the war, during the war, I was in Rowayton for a little while, 2 years, and then I was working in New York, and a single girl in New York getting free dinners every night or every other night, and riding my bicycle to work for 10 years.
To New York?
No, I was living in New York, and I rode my bicycle to the Time and Life building. And then I took a trip around the world, and what didn't seem curious to me was marriage. I thought that was something that I should do what I was doing now, which was going around and seeing everything, and then wait. So I was very lucky, and I met Link Wheeler, and he lived in Darien. So after a bit, we got married.
That was nice.
Yes, that was nice. And it was on the water, too, which I loved.
And how did that influence you, being on the water?
I've been on the water since I was 6 years old. I had my first boat when I bought my first boat for $1 from my uncle, and a rowboat, and I rode that when I was 6, 7, 8, and that started me on it. Then I raced with my father on his boat, and then I raced his boat alone with one crew when I was 9 years old in Long Island Sound.
Wow.
So I think it was in the genes or in the blood or something, because all our families and all Daddy's family, all sail.
All sailed. And can you tell us what strategies you used when you photographed birds?
When I photographed birds, yes. Well, I got a long lens for one thing, and one of my lenses was on a rifle holder, so it was like pointing a rifle. And shooting birds is very interesting because you have to think like a bird. And maybe I'm born to do that.
So how did you influence the bird?
Well, I'd get in my boat, I'd go upwind of them. You'll see a picture of that in a moment. And turn off my engine, my little outboard motor, and then I'd let the wind blow me down on the bird that was on the island. And then the bird would get nervous, and I would get nervous, and then I would shoot. And so that's the way I got some of my shots. In other pictures, like the ones that I've done in the Arctic, I was on a Russian icebreaker. So that was a little easier because you're higher up and you can sometimes get birds that are flying by. And there you lead the bird, and then the bird flies into the lens.
Well, we have pictures that you've taken, and it would be nice, it would be a good time to see them.
Oh, okay.
And maybe you could explain what it was that's being shown.
All right, I will try to do that. This is Ducks Rising, and it's shot in Scotts Cove, Darien, and it's mallards and blacks taking off in the morning fog at 6:30 in the morning. And you can see the fog between the birds, and that I took from the shore. So to me it looks like a concert. You can see the wings all parallel to each other. And then in my eye, the fellow on the right-hand side in the foreground is the conductor of the concert. And the others are down in the fog, and you can't really see them.
And which birds are these?
These are ducks, the black ducks and mallard ducks. You can't really see which is which in this particular picture.
Is it just the color that changes the name?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful picture.
Thank you.
And now we'll see the next one. And what are these birds?
These are great egrets, which I happen to love. And this I took with my method of getting up the island from them. I was upwind. I turned off my motor and I was blown down on them. And I knew that they were going to have to jump up, except the middle fellow who didn't. And the little fellow up in the middle on the left is a snowy egret. He's got yellow feet, also called the yellow slippers. And you will notice that in here they are showing every form of wing position that they use. The fellow on the right, the lower right, looks sort of like a Concorde, the airplane is, and that's the middle of his going down stroke. Then the one on the right is finishing his going down strike. See, the tips of his wings are right together. And above him is starting off again. And I think it's amazing to see all their feathers are stuck in the wind there. And his head looks like something that Andy Warhol would have had as a paste on, I think. That's it.
And maybe, what about the birds on the other side? Oops. Is this one of your favorite birds, do you think?
Yes, it's one of my favorite birds. These are puffins, and they're way up north, even over the Arctic Circle. And they are my favorite birds, too, because they love to play, and they love to sit. I mean, I was sitting next to these birds, and they just sit there very helpfully to me. And they have bright orange feet. So that's why I love the puffins.
Where were you when you took the puffins? Well, where were the puffins?
Way up in the islands, the northern islands of Scotland.
Really? What are these birds?
Oh my gosh, we're back down again. Okay, these are ospreys. And what's happening here is that the osprey is going off the father, presumably. And you can see the claws in his, at the end of his legs. And with those claws, he catches a fish, and then he'll bring it back to his adolescent children who were asking him for pizza, but he said no.
And these were close to where you lived, were they not?
No, these are way north.
Oh, really? Oh,
Oh, the osprey, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yes, the osprey was on Bell Island. And here we have another of my favorite birds, the sandhill cranes that are down in New Mexico. But they do very serious migrating, so it's hard to catch them at the moment they're stopping. And here they're walking slowly through a grassy meadow. And they somehow reminded me of people slowly going to an annual meeting. But I think they're fun.
and where else did you travel when you took pictures of birds?
Where else did I travel? I traveled everywhere.
Oh!
I kind of around the Arctic Circle. I've been into the Arctic Circle about 5 times.
Now, where is this?
This is not in the Arctic Circle. This is Norwalk Harbor. And these are the cormorants. They're full of fun, and they're playing a game called Me First. And they're trying to get near the orange mooring buoy. And you see them all lined up to the left, waiting to go.
What kind of camera did you use at this point?
At this point, I've had a variety of cameras. But those were taken with a Canon camera and a long Canon lens. This is a tern, and it's over San Francisco Bay, and he's just about to dive for his fish. And he will get his fish by opening his bill and catching the fish. But I think he looks very determined, so I'm very fond of him.
I could get fond of him too. What other cameras? Oh, here's another good one.
Oh, this is a gannet. This is an incredibly wonderful bird. He's very streamlined, and you can notice the black tips of his wings, and his wings are like they're in a V shape. And you can't see it here, I'm sorry to say, but he's got a very yellow head and a sort of a bluish bill. And they're extraordinary flyers, and they can dive from very high up, straight down, and you think they're going to break their skull, and then they come up with a fish. And they nest in roosts that are up through northern, well, what would be a good example? Up above Nova Scotia.
And here he is again. Same one.
That's
Oops,
Mr.
but
Gannon.
we're going to see something else now. What's
This is one that you'll notice is not in flight. He's just walking along, and it is another one of my favorites, but it's the semi-palmated plover. And he lays his eggs on beaches in very shallow indentations where any osprey or a hawk could swoop down and see them and steal the eggs. And they never seem to learn, so it won't surprise you to know that they're now going extinct. But that was taken up on the Cape in Monomoy. Very unusual. This is a fascinating picture because it's an oyster catcher with a yellow bill, and it is an egret, and they're right near each other, which they never would be in the daylight. But this one is taken in Darien on the Fish Islands in the dark of night. It's absolutely got no light at all. But I've shined a spotlight on them. Because I read in a book that if you did that, if you crawled around the swamps and had a spotlight, that they wouldn't move. And they didn't move. So I'm very happy with this picture.
I can see why.
Here's another great egret, and this one's in flight. And it's interesting because there, if you notice the wing pattern, he's pulling down on his wings, which means that he's slowing down so he can stop when he gets to the edge of that little cliff.
And that's also local, is it?
What?
That's also a local picture. It's from this
Yes,
area.
that's a local picture. That's taken in, that's also taken in the Fish Islands.
Oh, this is beautiful.
This is also a great egret, and you can see the length of their wing. It's unusual to get them with the wing that far up, but he's jumped out of a tree because I brought my little boat under a tree. And you can notice how his bony legs are parallel to the bony branches of the tree.
You wouldn't see them with the arm, with the wings that high often, would you?
No, you'll never see them with the wings that in that configuration unless you're in the island. And you don't see them. I mean, they change while he's not doing that when I stop taking the picture.
Okay, what kind of picture? What kind of birds are these?
These are plovers in silhouette, and this is up on the Cape in Monomoy. And I just thought it was a wonderful pattern. Yeah. And some of them are on one leg, and some of them are on two legs. But they all own two legs. It's just that some choose to be on one, and I've never understood why.
Well, I think the next one may be our last one today, so let's see what it's going to be.
That was the last one.
That was the last one. Well, that was a good one to end with. That was they were a nice group. So you have a lot of fun with the camera, and you have a lot of fun with the birds.
Yes, yeah? Yes.
And are there any that are particularly special that you want to mention?
Particularly special.
Well, what isn't special?
What isn't
when
special?
That gets up in the air and flies away.
Yes. Well, on that subject, penguins are very special because they've lost their ability to fly, and so they don't jump around. But they, you have to go to where they're roosting, and then you can sit down and usually get them doing something, except I must say that their roosts are very smelly.
Oh, really?
And I did that down in the Falkland Islands, down in Patagonia.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that we're just about finished. And I want to thank you. Well, is there anything special you want to tell us now?
Anything special?
Yes.
No.
You've told us a lot of special things.
I think I flung my wad.
Well, I think you showed us a lot of great pictures, really. I mean, it's a delight to see them, and it's a delight to have you with us to show them.
Thank you.
So, where did you go? Where else have you been taking pictures of birds?
Well, I went twice in the Arctic.
Mm-hmm.
And each time it was on a Russian icebreaker,
Mm-hmm.
because the Russians, as you know, had all those countries up very north,
Mm-hmm.
and the only way to get anything to them was by breaking the ice and getting in the supplies. So when they were lost to the Russians.
Mm-hmm.
And so after that, Russian icebreakers were available.
Mm-hmm.
So you could get a ride on one or two.
Mm-hmm. To get where you wanted to go.
I have never been to the fjords of Norway, which I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's just a very, it's an interesting hobby. It's an interesting way to. I have had 4 shows. One in Istanbul, in Turkey, because I've been there a lot, and others in Darien at the library for there, and then other places.
Are there any coming up?
No, I think they're not.
They're not yet.
It
Okay.
takes an
Well,
enormous
people should-
amount of time
Yeah.
to put it together.
Well, I want to shake your hand and
Oh,
we
you
say
do?
goodbye because the time is over.
Okay.
But if anyone wants to see more about Elsie, we'll have another show in a week, and on channel 88 at 10:30, and no, it's at 9:30. Excuse me. And so take a look and see what more we have to tell you. Good night.